Hi, everyone. We've got people still bing-bonging in, and so we're going to take just a minute. But in the meantime, I'm going to drop a link in the chat to a quick survey. It's about the referral partners and Unitas. And so if you'll go ahead, all the home visitors and staff and supervisors, if you'll complete this survey, we'll get started in just another minute or two. Is Tabitha here? I don't think she's here. Okay. Yeah, David will be here in just a couple of minutes. So if you'll go ahead and do this questionnaire that I dropped in the chat.
Yeah, I don't see Tabitha yet.
Thank you.
Lisa, you're on mute.
Thank you. David just got here by phone. I'm going to drop the survey into the chat one more time. So if you just arrived, if you'll fill out this survey. David, would you like to jump to our presentation by Stormy and Olivia and wait until you're in the office to do your part?
Yeah, why don't I do my part at the end? That's
Okay. Okay. Tabitha, would you like to introduce our visitors?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I don't think they're brand new to the collaborative. You might have seen them before. We have two fantastic research technicians, Stormy Fuller and Olivia Lane, who support our MIECHV work among other projects here at OU. Particularly, they have some expertise in qualitative research, and they today are going to present to you on a really exciting project where they met with families who qualified for home visiting services, but ultimately chose not to engage in services. So they've got some perceptions from these non-engaging caregivers that they're going to share with you all this morning. I'm very excited that they're here, and I think it'll be a great discussion and good for everyone to see the information. So Stormy and Olivia, take it away.
Thank you, Tabitha. And as I'm pulling out my slides, I want to say thank you to all of you guys who were helpful in the provider side of this project. I know that you guys are super busy, and a lot of you gave me some of your time to ask you similar questions to what you'll see here, but just from the provider perspective. So thank you again. Let's see. Okay, so as Tabitha mentioned, this was a study that we did with caregivers who are eligible for the program, but have not enrolled in any Parent Pro programs before. So we were looking at wanting to know why they choose not to enroll. And we kind of did that in 3 separate categories. We wanted to know what are the barriers and facilitators to them enrolling. What about the program maybe is or isn't appealing when they look at it from the outside? And then we also showed them a promotional video to see if they were getting the right information that we were trying to send through the video and what were their thoughts about the program or questions about the program after watching it. The first 2 questions that we have here, we addressed through the MODS framework of engagement, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Well, first, though, let me tell you about our sample. We interviewed 19 caregivers. They were all female caregivers, all moms. And we ended up having 18 at the end. 1 was a language barrier, which made me wish even more that we have a Spanish-speaking interviewer in the future sometime. The median age was 34 years old. Most of them had education beyond high school. And all but 1, excuse me, were receiving some type of social support, mostly through WIC or Sooner Care and Medicaid. We recruited these families through the WIC platform. And so at the beginning of this project, when they were involved with other MIECHV surveys, they had all qualified for WIC at that time. These caregivers were a primary caregiver for 1 to 7 children, which is just so many children. But the median number was 3. Something that was interesting that came up, which we didn't ask about, but we noticed partway through our coding of these interviews, was that none of these caregivers were first-time caregivers. And we suspect that that might have had some sort of impact on our data that we didn't expect, especially when it comes to our questions and results that we got when we asked about different areas of parenting where they would want more information or more help. And so if you're going to keep that in mind as we look at the results, especially in that section, we think that this might have had an impact that we didn't expect because none of these were first-time moms, which I know a lot of the Parent Pro target demographic is first-time moms. So the MODS framework that I mentioned is really just this way for us to at caregiver engagement and home visiting. And the internal states of engagement that we were looking at through the MODS framework are what do caregivers think and feel about home visiting? And there's kind of 3 sections of that. Their personal compatibility with the program. Excuse me. How do they perceive their personal compatibility with the program? So we asked them things about how the program aligns or conflicts with their parenting goals, the needs that they have, their lifestyle and schedule, as well as maybe even their values about parenting. And of course, along with that, what changes would make the program more compatible. We also asked about caregivers' readiness for change and state of change, which I know you all think about and talk about a lot in your motivational interviewing. Providers that we just wrapped up talking with, they talk a lot about motivational interviewing and how useful that is for them. And you'll see that a lot in these results in our readiness for change. So we asked them about their current satisfaction in 8 different areas of parenting. This would be things like tracking development of their child, how are they disciplining their child, what about family communication and relationships, are they satisfied with what they know and what they can do right now? We also asked them about their openness to implementing different parenting strategies if things aren't working well. And if they are open what sources of information specifically are they most open to? The third part of internal engagement that we looked at was their confidence that they can participate effectively in the program and achieve not only the program's desired outcomes, but their own desired outcomes and parenting goals. So we just asked questions pretty much along those same lines. Level of confidence in making changes, what kind of things would increase their confidence perhaps in being able to make parenting changes. And so the results that I'll show will be in these three categories as well. Compatibility wise, what do caregivers think about how the program will fit in with them in their life? 13 out of the 18 said that they do have needs that a Parent Pro program could meet. Most of those were needs. Oh, hold on. My microphone has changed.
We can hear you.
Is it fixed now? I'm so sorry.
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, I got a notification that it was coming from my computer instead of my headphones. Okay, excuse that. So most of the caregivers said that they did have needs Parent Pro could help meet, and the vast majority of those were in wanting parenting information, as we would expect. Mostly on things like interacting with their child and developmental information. At this point, all of us know that the parents love developmental information, so that wasn't a surprise. Only 2 of the caregivers reported that a main draw of the program was resources and referrals that they could get, which was surprising to me. 10 said that they thought that the program could help them reach their parenting goals, their personal parenting goals, but only half of them reported that the program would fit well with their schedule, specifically because of work, also something that we know and have heard before. Interesting to us was 7 caregivers said that they really don't need Parent Pro. 3 of them were already receiving similar services, and 5 of them just thought that the information that they needed about parenting wasn't going to be in the Parent Pro curriculum, specifically for things like how to handle a child with a developmental disability or autism. Several of the caregivers did have ideas of how the program could be more compatible with their lifestyle. Of course, the most popular one was to adjust the schedule to fit with their work schedule, so weekend and evening visits. The results about parent state of change, so this was that category where we asked them about their satisfaction in all of these different areas of parenting. How happy were they with their current knowledge and skills in these different areas? And surprisingly, overall, they were pretty satisfied. We didn't ask it on a Likert scale, but we ended up coding it on a Likert type scale. And if we just take out the top category of completely satisfied, then 2/3 of the categories were majority. Sorry, that's confusing. Let me rephrase. So if we just focus on parents that were not completely satisfied, there was only 3 categories that the majority of parents wanted more information. Daily activities, things like routines with their child, how to discipline their child, and then supporting their own well-being and stress as a parent, which is also not surprising. If we include the more satisfied than not in these groups, so parents that said that they were either more satisfied than not or completely satisfied, there was only one group left, the supporting our own health and well-being, that had a majority of caregivers that were not satisfied with their current knowledge and skills. So that seemed to be the main area that parents would be open to receiving more information. In terms of implementing new parenting strategies, all of the parents said that they were open to that. But when we asked them about sources of information that they would like to get that from, more of them talked about non-professional sources than professional sources. Many of those non-professional sources were things like other parents or family members. And several of them also mentioned that it didn't really matter where the information came from as long as it sounded good and kind of aligned with the things that they already thought about parenting. So our last category from the MODS framework, confidence about participating effectively in the program and achieving the outcomes that they want. Most of them, 14 of them, said that they could make something happen. They could make changes when things weren't working well with their family, and they felt confident about that. The things that helped strengthen their confidence was having a support system, having an open mindset, kind of that state of change, moving forward for them, and then also having past experience with changing things in their parenting successfully helped them have confidence that they could do it again. On the other side of that, having negative past experiences with parenting change would lower their confidence that they could change now, as well as judgment or criticism from others. Usually this is from family members about their parenting, and not having a support system as well. The results from the marketing material that we showed them, the video that we showed them, a Parent Pro promotional video that was a little bit over 2 minutes long, and then asked them questions to assess how accurately they could perceive things about the program afterwards, and what were their thoughts and what information would they still want to know. Most of them got everything basically right in terms of understanding the topics and the content of the program, that it comes to me at your home, that it's free. They were a little bit less clear about some of the logistics of the program, like how often are the visits happening, how do you enroll, and most of the caregivers, 13 of them, wanted more of that logistical information before deciding whether or not to enroll. After watching the video, what they thought was attractive about the program specifically was that they could learn more about parenting, of course, and that it was taking out that barrier of transportation, that it would come to their home. That in-home service was also one of the main off-putting elements of the program, though, because a lot of the parents perceived a provider coming into their home as being perhaps associated with DHS, or just that risk of being judged about the cleanliness of their home or just the way that they're living. Some of them living in poverty and just feeling a little bit embarrassed. So those are our results. What we're curious to hear from y'all is what kind of things were surprising to you, why such a low number of the caregivers were expressing strong needs. We kind of threw out our hypothesis that a lot of it has to do with them not being first-time moms. And we're also curious about what you think the MODS framework might have missed. We have those categories set, but in terms of addressing our aim of why eligible caregivers aren't enrolling, is there anything that maybe was left out that we should have been asking about?
Thank you. Does anybody want to weigh in on the questions that they'd like to hear from you about? And what was surprising? Why the low number expressing strong needs, or something about the MODS framework?
Can you talk a little bit about, you said because they weren't first time moms, like, can you tell me why that's an issue?
For sure. We don't know for definitely that it's an issue. It was just something interesting that we noticed. We suspect that, and some of them told us when we were asking those questions about these different areas of parenting and what they might want to know, we heard us frequently that they already have parenting experience. And so there's some areas that they already feel comfortable in. And it's just that previous parenting experience giving them information that a first-time mom might not have, giving them that experience to where they don't feel like they need as much help, was what we saw.
Okay, thank you.
Stormy, this is Kathy in Tulsa. I'm wondering if you were able to break down the two urban settings in any of this data between Tulsa and Oklahoma City, just at pure curiosity, really.
That's a great question. We did not do that. We could do that. We could go back and see. Do you have, do you suspect that those would be different answers?
Well, it might be because of resource allocation. It's much easier to access resources in the urban setting versus the rural. That's just a straight up fact for, years and years that I've heard. But just knowing that both of those large urban areas have Parent Pro access, I was just curious.
That makes a lot of sense, especially because such a low number of caregivers saying that needing resources would be a driving factor to enrolling. That would be interesting to look at.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Yolanda with Oklahoma City Public Schools, and I am with the Parents as Teachers program. But one of the things, and we received referrals from Parent Pro, and when I contact the families, sometimes there is like the expectation that maybe, what they heard, there some of them, of course, they don't have a clear expectations about what we do. And so they said, well, maybe they think that we serve all their children and some tutoring program. Another was like, do you offer any financial aid or, different resources? Like housing or so, yes. And once you explain, what we really do in our case with parents as teachers, like, well, no, I really don't need that type of services. So that is, my experience when I have been calling the parents, they have been referred to us.
Thank you, Yolanda. That is so interesting, especially because a lot of the providers that we asked similar questions to said something similar of they almost end up in the situation where they're being asked to be a case manager and connecting to those different resources that aren't exactly having to do with child development, like the financial aid that you were talking about. Yeah, that is interesting. It also makes me wonder how the marketing could be tweaked to get the message across of perhaps also what Parent Pro does not offer.
Thank you, Yolanda. All right. Thank you so much, Stormy, for your presentation. This was terrific. David, would you like to take a few minutes to talk about the LASSO release of information procedure and the custom forms in Unitas?
I can start that conversation if one of the LASSO liaisons are with us today, either the internal or external. I think it'd be better to hear it from the source. There's been and I hope that I'm not the first to break the news to those of you that are concentrating on getting referrals out to LASSO, but we're hearing there are a couple of hiccups with the procedures we had initially planned. For starters, it sounds like if we've got multiple adults in the home, there's some question about whether or not they can accept referrals from multiple individuals. And I think that decision is still pending. I'm going to kick that one to our LASSO representative here in just a second. The other issue is the necessity of a hard copy ROI. And in order to get that hard copy ROI, most of the connections are by phone, maybe virtual initially, and then before they really can dive into any details, they've got to get that ROI signed. So it is being mailed out by snail mail and then mailed back with a signature. Obviously, that creates some delays. So we have a meeting set up in the near future to try and work through some alternative options. No guarantees that we can pursue those. But anyway, before we close the chapter on that one, is Pilar on by chance or?
No, she's not. I think she had a conflict.
Yeah, she'll be out today. But Tiffany and who else did I see?
Tiffany, would you like to talk a little bit about this?
Yes, hi. I'm Tiffany Armendariz. I am the Medical Legal Partnership Development Director of Legal Aid, and I don't have much more to contribute at this point than what Dr. Bard already said about the situation. And ROI is a release of information that allows us the legal basis to communicate with you about referrals after they are made. We are ultimately a law firm, and we take confidentiality, privacy laws very seriously, and would like to be protected in our communication moving forward once a referral is made. We are working on electronic signatures and how to implement that into the Unitas platform, but at this time it is going to be a hard copy, but we will get that out in the mail as soon as we do an intake on the referral. The issue on whether we need a referral for each member of the household or one referral per household is an ongoing conversation that I am new to, and we're hoping to resolve that. As traditionally in the MLP model of practice, you need a referral for each person, and the referrals are the patient of the healthcare partner on the healthcare partner side of the medical legal partnership. And so that's where we are in those talks. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions or if I was able to shed any more light there, but that's where that is.
That's great.
I think that's about it. Thanks.
I did have one quick question just to make sure I'm understanding correctly. We're talking about the ROI so that the healthcare provider can communicate back with LASSO, because we do sign an ROI on Unitas, a consent on Unitas.
Right. This is more for a release of information that covers more than just a consent for the referral, and it's also a release that allows us to make referrals on Unitas as a coordinated care network.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's coming the other way from LASSO back into the system. That's an ROI too that has to be signed. And for the moment, it's got to be hard copy. So we wanted, particularly those sites that are working on PDSA projects with LASSO to be aware of that if you weren't already, that, that potentially could be an obstacle, a timing obstacle of completing the initial processes and receiving services from LASSO. You may want to bear that in mind as you start to look at some of your data on the feedback that you get from that organization. And as Tiffany indicated, we're meeting to try to talk through some alternative approaches here, and they definitely want to cooperate as best they can, but they have to follow the letter of the law for the moment, and that's just how the agency has always operated up to this point. Okay, remind me what my other topic is.
Custom forms.
Oh yeah, custom forms. Okay, custom forms, it should be available to you now in the Unitas system. I think we have briefly mentioned in the previous call, or certainly in an email that's been circulated between calls, that our wonderful representatives from Unitas have circulated a handout to guide us all through the accession of the custom forms with screenshots and some explanations of what's expected to be input in each of those fields. We thought we'd take the opportunity today to walk through that together, and if questions arise sort of organically as we move from step one to step in, you have a chance to air those out now, and if we don't know the answer, we'll try to find it. I did also want to alert the audience that we've seen these custom forms now in the system, and we recognize it's not the friendliest application ever invented. So this too is sort of up for discussion, and we hope evolves over time. But for now, this is what we have been dealt, and it certainly does capture all the information that we were hoping for. But I did want you to know that we recognize it's not the easiest form to navigate. So we're looking at options there. If you have suggestions on how to make the form easier to navigate, please speak those out now, or send us suggestions by email.
And then there's also the issue of the custom forms becoming accessible in received referrals.
Yes, I'll get out of my depth on that one. I remember hearing that and seeing it, but I'm not sure I fully understand what that means. You no longer have to help me out here. Open the case officially. No, I better keep my mouth shut. I don't know.
Yeah, Tabitha, you want to jump in?
Yeah. The change is that instead of waiting to add a custom form when the referral is accepted, they changed on the back end the type of form it is so that now you can access it while you hold the referral in review. So this means while you are waiting to see if you can accept the referral and provide services, you're able to update the life of that referral and use the forms as intended.
Thank you. Tabitha, are you the one walking us through the handout?
I'm going through some of the highlights of it, yes.
Okay. Any questions before we start that overview of the handout? Okay.
Okay, Tabitha, you want to take it away?
Sure. Do you have the slides up already, Lisa?
I don't, but I can get them up if you want me to.
I can too. I just hadn't opened it. I wasn't sure if you already.
No, I closed it because I thought you might be needing to get into it.
We're being so polite to one another.
We are, and therefore neither of us is prepared. So what Tabitha is going to go over is a quick overview of the custom forms.
Specifically the guide that Kayla sent.
Yeah, the guide. And then after that, I'll go over the answers to this REDCap survey that you took at the beginning. If anybody still needs to take that little survey, just drop a note in the chat and I'll get the link again.
Okay, I got it pulled up, Lisa. I made it. Let me get my screen share ready. Okay.
We see it.
Perfect. Okay. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the custom forms guide that was sent out. If you've opened it, I hope you have. It's several pages. So the purpose of today is just hitting some of the highlights, certainly not to regurgitate that tool, but we wanted to draw your attention to it. So it was developed by Kayla Woodbury, who's been our fearless partner and Unite Us. It was sent to supervisors via email on September 8th. And it provides step-by-step screenshot examples of how to add a custom form to your client and how to modify the custom forms. If you don't have access to that guide, you can ask any of the liaisons and they will have access to it through the Microsoft Teams that they have access to, or your supervisor should have a copy if you can't locate it quick in your email. You can also, of course, just reach out to Dr. Deshay and myself and we'll get that sent back to you. There will be one major change in the wording of the guide as it exists. Currently, it says on one of the pages that you can't add a custom form until a referral is accepted. As we just went over, that is a change that we made. So once you change the referral to hold and review, meaning you're looking into it to see if you can accept that client or if you have to decline it, you will be able to add the custom form. Okay. So once you add a consent and Unite Us, you're automatically directed to what they call the client face sheet. I'm sure many of you have seen this before, but here is an example of that client face sheet. If you want to go back to this after you've already added consent, all you have to do is select clients, and that top dark blue banner on Unite Us, you'll see you have dashboard and then clients. You click on clients, you'll have a list of them, and once you select that client, it'll open their client face sheet. Once you're in the client face sheet under the Forms tab, which you see at the top, the yellow tabs, it's the fourth one over. If you go into Forms, you can add a new submission. This is if you've received the referral and you're going to track those engagement mile markers we've been talking about. So that's where you'll add the custom form. Once you've added the form, it will always be there in that client's Forms tab. For this project, we have 5 custom forms. One is the ETO case number. That's the first example that Kayla goes through in the guide. So that will be added, of course, by the home visiting staff and supervisors for all referrals that you send to the partner organizations. And all referrals sent by partner organizations that you accept. So that's one that home visiting will always need to add, is the ETO case number form. That is not shared back. It's just a place for us to hold that data so that we're able to match the Unitas data with what we get out of ETO. So please always be adding that form. And then the other 4 are the engagement mile markers. We've shown you Word versions of these over our last few calls, but what this includes is just a list of what we call engagement mile markers from referral received to whether or not that referral is accepted or declined. And there's one for each of the partners in this project. So Sooner Start, Lasso, PCAP, and Home Visiting. These are added by the agency that receives the referral. So if you are C1 and you receive a referral from Sooner Start, Lasso, or PCAP, you would then add the home visiting engagement mile markers to that referral and update it as your agency decides what's going to happen with it. The agency or staff who sent the referral can then check it. So they will just need to go to that client's face sheet under the Forms tab, and there they will be able to see updates as the receiving agency updates the form. So the receiving agency must continue to update the custom form as the referral progresses. That custom form goes through different important mile markers we've talked about, like contact attempts, important types of scheduled visits, like an intake for some organizations, and assigning a provider once the referral is accepted. So again, if you need to review that to familiarize yourself with what is on the custom form, we're happy to share a version with you if you don't want to check it in Unitas, but the receiving agency is going to update it as the referral is processed. Then the referring agency again can continue to check the custom form for updates. Each time an update is made, this is a little clunky, but a new version of the mile markers form appears. So it won't be that same form just updated live. It'll list itself in reverse chronological order. So the most up-to-date version of the form will be at the top. So in this example, you see that it's for one client here named Brittany Carter, and that it is the form called referral tracking. So this might be the Sooner Start mile markers. So the first version is going to be at the bottom, and then if it's updated by that receiving agency, there was a change in contacting that client, for example, that update is going to be in that top form. So you'll always just want to check the most recent or top version of the custom form. Again, if you're not sure when you should be updating the mile markers custom form, you can go in and check what information can be added just in Unitas. You have access to those. Or if you would prefer to see a PDF document version of the mile markers, you can request that from your liaison or from Dr. Deshay or myself, and we can share that with you. But we certainly appreciate you all updating that. That information is going to be really important for us to be able to process this project. I think that's all I had, but I'll pause for any questions. That was a really quick and fast overview.
I'm curious to hear how many have had any difficulties, or maybe even no difficulties, accessing and using the custom forms today. We're blind right now, and we do not have data coming in, sadly. So we're still waiting on a data sharing agreement to get finalized and our first data shipment to arrive. So very dependent on feedback from you all about what you see in the system and how it's operating.
Do we have anybody from Sooner Start or Lasso who has dealt with a custom form in Unitas? Okay, well, maybe it's just a little premature and we're just still ironing out a few kinks in the system. But this is, so it's mainly for the communication back to whoever made the referral. So when you make a referral to Lasso, their custom form is intended to help you keep track. And by the way, Tiffany sent me a note in the chat saying that the delay in the ROI will delay that communication, but it will not delay the provision of services to your clients. And so I thought you'd like to know that. Okay. If there's no comments or questions, Tabitha, would you drive while we go through the answers to the Red Cap survey?
Hey, Lisa, this is
Oh, yeah.
Kathy in Tulsa. Sorry.
Yeah, Kathy, go ahead.
I think this is an appropriate question.
That's
So
fine.
if the home visitor has, I'm thinking of something that probably happens a lot. Let's say they have an updated contact. So we put that in a note section on Unitas, and then does that come back through on the mile marker to us that to confirm that you know there's a new contact? I guess that's for Tabitha. Thank you.
That's a great question. My understanding of that would be that you would communicate via the notes option, the messaging, and those do notify you. So the custom form, again, you have to kind of go in and manually check for updates. The message function notifies the user when they've been sent a message. And then that will come through on the custom form because the receiving agency would be able to have like a previous failed contact attempt, incorrect number, and then a successful contact attempt. So that's
and
where
that can be edited in the client's face sheet too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if their phone number was incorrect, and you can go into the client's face sheet, put in a correct phone number, and then drop a note to the referral, the person who's receiving the referral, and just say, by the way, we have a new contact.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments?
And I'll normalize quickly. It's very possible you haven't had successes or barriers yet because you weren't able to access the form until the referral was accepted. So that was something that we hadn't realized was happening and has now been fixed. So again, as soon as you receive a referral, hold it in review and you can start using the custom forms.
Okay, let's go over these answers to the Red Cap survey. So here was the question saying, Lasso may be able to help home visiting clients with which of the following cases, and you're supposed to check all that apply. So let's look at what the correct answers were. And sometimes it's helpful to see what were not correct. Lawsuits, they can't help if with a lawsuit if they want to sue somebody or they're being sued. Green cards, for the most part, are not a topic they can help with. Personal injury or speeding tickets, they don't do any personal injury, they can't help with. Speeding tickets, that gets into criminal law, and they do not deal with criminal law cases. And then they don't do cash assistance for diapers or private health insurance. It's only the public health insurance that they can help with. They can help with Medicaid or Sooner Start, Sooner Care, and so forth. Any questions about this one? Tiffany, if I may ambush you again, is there anything you would like to say about this slide?
I do have a question actually, if Tiffany is available.
Go ahead, Katie.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm available.
You're
Oh,
good.
okay.
Yeah.
So I know you don't handle criminal cases, but do you assist with expunging criminal records?
Yes. We
That's
do
a good.
not handle active criminal charges, but we do assist with criminal expungements, and we also help with criminal fines and fees if it's related to, you know, if they're not able to pay or they have a warrant due to criminal fines and fees and it's a barrier to housing assistance or something like that. Those are issues that we help with. I didn't hear if there was a question before that. I'm sorry. Is
No, there
another
wasn't.
question on the floor?
No, there wasn't. I just was opening it up to you to be able to say something. Those are good clarifications. And so there may be issues related to a criminal case, but not to the charges themselves. So if a case has been dealt with, but then there's fines left over and the court issues a warrant, that can be a problem for someone trying to get place to live. So
May I add a little bit more here?
absolutely.
Okay. So we have an acronym for helping others to remember what issues we can assist with, and it's called iHelp, and it stands for income supports, healthcare access, education and employment, landlord, tenant and housing, and personal and family stability and safety. And those are consumer law issues, our income supports, such as benefits, which are on this list, debt collection, garnishments, healthcare access in the sense that we do have healthcare navigators if that's something that someone needs in order to find healthcare, affordable healthcare, education and employment when it comes to children who are on a IEP or 504 and the parent needs assistance with that, or unemployment. Landlord, tenant, and housing encapsulates a variety of housing issues, whether it's repairs, maintenance, housing discrimination, private landlord-tenant issues, public housing issues, and then personal and family stability and safety are all the family law issues, custody, visitation, support, paternity, divorce, estate planning as it pertains to healthcare needs or otherwise. That's a brief overview of what we can and cannot do.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, we have distributed the iHelp tool, and so but that's good to have a refresher of what the iHelp stood for. So we know this was probably the hardest question on the survey. Because it's actually many questions, because each one of these you're having to think yes or no, yes or no. Katie, you have another question. Does healthcare access include OASDI or SSI applications?
Social Security applications fall under the income supports. That is something we don't typically assist with initial applications, but we can advise on those and how they can do that. And we get involved more on the appeals when they have to appeal those decisions.
I know from my family's experience that I had a brother with schizophrenia who was on SSI, and the experience was that every time they reject the initial application and you have to get into the appeals. David's asking about child welfare custody cases.
Yes, we can get involved in those as well. DHS involvement is not a barrier to our services.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you again for letting me ambush you a second time during this meeting.
I'm on the call. I can,
Thank
however
you.
I can help. You're
Thank
welcome.
you. All right, let's go on, Tabitha. So true or false, LASSO can provide legal advice even when the family already has legal representation. The answer? Tabitha? Click. False. If they already have a lawyer, they don't need a lawyer. So that's they're not going to step in where another lawyer is under contract. So, all right, the next one. One goal of Sooner Start is to work with children under 36 months with a developmental delay to reduce the need for special education someday. This is true. This is the key part of Sooner Start's mission. Now, some people might have said false because they saw that under 36 months and they're like, well, they have to be more than under 36 months because 36 months is the cutoff. So they might need to be, you know, a few months younger than that to be able to get any services provided before they turn 36 months. Okay, the next one. True or false, I'll automatically be notified in Unitas if a custom form is updated. And Tabitha gave us the answer just a minute ago. That's false. They do not automate notifications. Having your referral partner could be adding information every day about contact attempts, and you're not going to get an email every time that that's updated. You have to manually go in and look at that. And you look at when they add information to it, it says new form submission. That means they're submitting something new to that form. They're not, and so they click it and all the previous information is in there, but it's a new version of the form now that they can add information to. So that's why you have to look at the top version, the most latest version of the form. True or false? Any home visiting clients with substance use concerns are eligible for PCAP services. This is false. So there's a lot of eligibility criteria for PCAP, that there was at-risk substance use during pregnancy and or a child in the home is younger than 24 months and the mother has current at-risk alcohol use. The women must be in their childbearing years. But when in doubt, make the referral. Thank you, Katie. That's so when in doubt, just go ahead and make it because we don't want anybody to slip through the cracks. True or false? Sooner Start must receive a child's referral at least 30 days before the child's 3rd birthday to be able to serve them. I thought this was a little bit of a trick question. But I didn't write it, so that's why everybody should say, Lisa, you should have written more questions if you don't like this one. No, it has to be, they have 45 days to process a referral under the law. So that's why they want to receive the referral at least 45 days before the child's 3rd birthday, because then they can get them processed in and actually provide some service before they age out of being eligible for the services. Susan has a question about the childbearing years on PCAP. Is that defined as 13 to 44? Well, let's, Katie, do you want to jump in here?
Yes. So since PCAP is a study, and they have to provide informed consent, we can only serve adults age 18 to 44. And so for PCAP purposes, childbearing years has to be a legal adult. So
okay, thank you. That was a good question, Susan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, next one. True or false? To add a custom form in Unitas, I should go to the Forms tab under the client face sheet. And it's true. That's where you find it. Now, check all apply. Which home visiting clients described would likely qualify for PCAP? And we have 5 situations described here. We have Janae, who has a 7-month-old baby and is using opioids. And so she has a child under 24 months, and she's currently engaged in some risky behavior. Vanessa is pregnant, uses marijuana, and just moved to Oklahoma. The fact that she just moved to Oklahoma is not an issue. She is using a substance during pregnancy. Michiko's 24, has a 5-year-old son, and drinks a 6-pack of beer daily. She is within the childbearing years and she's engaging in the risky behavior. It's okay that she has a 5-year-old son. Then there was the item saying Sophie's 22 years old and is legal guardian of her brother's 3-year-old son with fetal alcohol syndrome disorder. They do care about these parents of the fetal alcohol syndrome children, but the legal guardian, who is not the biological parent, is not eligible, but the biological mother may be. Then Tana's 37 years old, has a 3-year-old daughter, and the gynecologist who performed her hysterectomy recommended drug treatment. She would not be eligible. So questions about this, or Katie, would you like to take a moment to talk a little bit about any of these?
So part of the reason that Chico is a yes is since she is has, I would probably say, a moderate to severe alcohol use disorder with that much consumption. There's a very good chance she did consume while she was pregnant. And for PCAP purposes, you can have a child of any age if they have a fetal alcohol spectrum diagnosis. And in this case, they may not have a diagnosis, but there's a high likelihood that the child could be diagnosed with FASD. And so we would ask additional questions to screen them in and see if there is assistance we can provide. So for Sophia, I will say if the biological mother is randomized to the treatment group or the PCAP case manager group, then we would provide assistance to the caregiver of the child as well, and also help the biological mother. So, but we have to have the biological mother as the referral and not the legal guardian.
Okay, so the biological mother would actually be your participant in your study, but then by virtue of that, the legal guardian, Sophia, could, and the son could be brought in for referral to services or any assistance that could be provided.
Definitely.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Questions about this? Was that the last one, Tabitha? Okay, that's what I thought. All right, Dr. Bard, would you have 3 minutes to wrap us up?
Okay, I can do that. Well, first of all, that was great. Thank you for putting that together, folks. And I learned a few things. I hope others did too. We'll keep doing that. We're going to try to make this sort of a habit of our monthly calls of revisiting some of the facts and content, particularly around eligibility criteria, just to make sure we're all fully aware of the boundaries of service provision from our network partners. And likewise.
Yeah, and I taught for 25 years, and I always told students, you know, a quiz or a survey like this is not intended as punishment, it's teaching. And so this by getting this, having you complete this, we've engaged you into thinking about these, and it may raise questions in your mind, and then we can come in and bring some clarification, and actually we're learning right along with you. And so we appreciate you taking the time to fill that out. Sorry for interrupting, David. I'm bad about that.
Did want to put the scores on the bulletin board, but we talked her out of that. So yes, no punishment or shame.
I don't publicly shame people. I do that in private.
If you have a good question about your own service, or maybe you had a tricky case and you think that there's a lesson to be learned there that you want to share with the others, please send those our way. But thank you for your time today, and we really appreciate all the hard work that you're doing on the ground. It is early, so you know, Lisa may be right. We're a bit premature to be asking questions about those custom forms, but please don't feel the need to wait for our next monthly call. If you encounter an obstacle, even if you solve it, will you let us know? And that way we can sort of get the word out, and others don't have to reinvent the wheel if they encounter the same issue.
Okay, great. We're finishing right on time. Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a good day.
And then that is what I love about you.